Hi, everyone. I'm Leonard Higgins. Really happy to be here.
And how long was the time between that first unexpected call was made to your company and when you yourself were notified of the incident?
Oh, almost immediately. I was notified within 5 minutes. The call came in about 10, and they said they were activists, and they gave us about 10 minutes to do the shutdown, and we were notified almost immediately.
And what was the impact of this unplanned shutdown?
It was terrible. Stock prices dipped, and not for long, but it shook the confidence of the energy industry and the people who have confidence in the energy industry.
And so, on our current emissions trajectory, what's the magnitude of climate change we can expect looking forward?
Our best estimates from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in their 2014 report is that we expect a global average air temperature increase of about 4 degrees centigrade by the end of the century. This is based on currently trapping about 2.3 watts per meter squared of additional energy in the Earth's climate system.
Is it safe to say that that kind of temperature change will have cascading effects?
Oh, certainly, yes.
And is it too late right now for us to meaningfully shift that climate trajectory by shifting our burning of fossil fuels?
I think every day that we do not reduce our use of fossil fuels extends longer the period that the Earth's reacting with this global warming.
The Director of National Intelligence, likewise, has repeatedly asserted that climate change is a threat to national security. And I should underscore that this planning continues even under this administration.
Going into the future, what kinds of security threats and issues do you expect to see from climate change in terms of national security?
Well, what I'd go ahead and say is that we don't even need to look into the future. There's a persuasive case that the war in Syria is deeper and longer because of the impacts of climate change. The Euphrates Valley in Syria was affected by a drought unprecedented in their history in both length and scale that drove hundreds of thousands of people, perhaps even 1 million people, off of their lands, off of their agricultural and herding lands, and into cities like Dara, Aleppo, Homs.
If we're talking about climate change, though, we live in a democracy. We get to go and vote. In a situation like that, really, what is the point of civil resistance?
It brings in really the third branch of government in a way. Many sorts of actions, all legal, in a long campaign, can ultimately produce a point where everything's stalled, everything's blocked, and if the danger is imminent enough, and I think that the testimony we've heard from doctors running in Holland would convince us all that this is very imminent, that when you are blocked from engaging in democracy in any fruitful way, that it's time to turn to the third branch. So I view nonviolent civil resistance as working within the system, not throwing the system overboard.
In your time as a professional environmentalist, did you ever hear serious policy discussion among people capable of implementing it about something analogous to the Montreal Protocol or about a mobilization analogous in scale to World War II?
No, nothing that we're... The only conversations that have occurred over the last 20 years are all within the realm of what's considered politically doable now. And that won't work. We have to think about this in terms of what abrupt political change and what is necessary to avoid destroying the conditions that make civilization possible, and are going to do in a bunch of ecosystems. We have to work backwards from what is necessary. We cannot work forward from what is seen as politically feasible.
It's the immense power and the deep pockets, the immense profits that the fossil fuel companies are taking that are blocking what we need to do. I think that they're surprised at how long they've been able to hold off the kind of move that we need to make in reducing fossil fuel emissions. That they copied the work of the tobacco companies in sowing doubt, in trying to divert attention away, and they were very successful in keeping on having profits from tobacco sales for a long time. And, you know, the fossil fuel companies, they've been at this now for 30 and 40 years since we knew what needed to change. And I think they're shocked at how long they've been able to do this. So my act in participating with the others in shutting down the tar sands pipelines is an act of desperation. It's the only thing left that I see left that has a chance of requiring the kind of individual action, the kind of individual commitment to change that we need to address this problem.
I think any human being would be moved by Mr. Higgins' testimony. This is not, however, a trial of fact versus emotion in any sense. The facts in this case are clear, and they point irrevocably to a not guilty verdict for the defendant. There's 4 criteria to be met in an affirmative defense of necessity in the state of Montana. The first is that there's an emergency occurring. We heard testimony today about temperatures which have already risen and will continue to rise under our current emissions trajectory. We heard testimony today about the collapse of a food system and a major conflict ensuing not because of climate change we've already seen, but exacerbated certainly by it. There's the criteria of imminent harm. I think in this case, the language could even be more legally restrictive, and we would still meet it. The harm isn't imminent. The harm is underway right now. The harm is happening outside of us as we speak. The lack of reasonable alternatives seems clear to anybody who's tried to do anything in our political system, but climate change really does present a unique case of intransigence among institutions. And we heard testimony from somebody who spent decades of their life trying to use the existing mechanisms and channels for creating change in our society to do anything at all about climate change and utterly failing. And of course, there's the competing harms, the lesser of two evils. In this case, we have something people feel pretty comfortable in a number of cases describing as the end of the world versus the testimony we heard from Michael Foster this evening about the loss of revenue and prestige for the company he works for. I think every one of these criteria has been absolutely, stunningly, effortlessly, breathtakingly met.